Hello! We're back with another Vladcast. I'm John Hill.
And I'm Father Gregory Joyce.
Welcome, Father.
Thank you, John.
And we have April Vladcast today. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. We've got Palm Sunday, we've got Passion Week, we've got Pascha, the Feast of Feasts. We've got also, don't forget Annunciation, Bright Week. And on top of all of that April stuff, it's true, isn't it, Father, that it's not just April 2015, it's the mystical eternity, right? The always, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages, because at all the divine services, there's a mystical recreation of important events in the history of our salvation.
That's absolutely right. And when we're at the divine services, then we partake of that in a mystical way that we can't always completely understand. But when we are at the services on Holy Friday, Thursday evening, we're at the cross of Christ as he's crucified. So the services are really, really important all the time, and this time of year especially so.
And I will start by recalling something that happened at my house last Saturday. It was Saturday morning, and there was a knock at the door. And I opened it, and there was a gentleman, well-dressed gentleman, and he wanted to invite me to celebrate the death of Jesus Christ on, I think it was the 3rd of April, and I said I wouldn't be going, but thank you, and I'd rather celebrate his resurrection. And he asked, which is more important, and I said, definitely the resurrection. And he liked that, and we had a cordial moment, and he left. What do you make of that, Father?
Well, I think that it's really important for us as Orthodox Christians to understand that Pascha is the most important feast of the year. It's the Feast of Feasts, it's the Day of Days, it's everything that is the main focus of our spiritual lives. Of course, to get to the resurrection, you have to go to the cross. So we don't deny the cross, and we participate in these services, and they're important services, but we definitely are not hyper-focusing on Christ's death and his suffering. We don't deny it, we don't push it away, but we are absolutely moving towards the resurrection. So I think that we are people of the resurrection. That's really what being a Christian is to be a person of hope, a person of the resurrection. So it is true that not all Christians sort of see it that way. Easter is not always the biggest feast in all sort of Christian traditions, but for us it absolutely is. And we hope that people will join us, of course, for Pascha, but also for all of those important days that lead up to that. Each day of Holy Week has an important theme, an important activity that's happening. And this year, glory to God, we will have a service, at least one service each day of the Passion Week.
Okay, well, let's back it up a little bit, and then we can go through it.
Good.
And maybe start with my favorite. Well, no, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but a holiday I really like, a feast I really like, and that is Palm Sunday, which is interesting because it's kind of a day of triumph, and it comes at the end of Lent. And there's this triumph, and we can have fish, right? Which will be welcome.
Yes, that one time this year.
Yeah.
Great feast, one of my favorites too. Love this feast. I think, and what's really nice about this feast is it's so big, it can't be contained in one day. And because the day after it is Monday, it's already Passion Week, it kind of, in the divine dispensation, the way that God arranged everything for our salvation, it begins before the feast. Great Lent ends, strictly speaking, with the beginning of Matins on Friday evening before Palm Sunday. And we begin Holy Week at that time. This is the Matins for Lazarus Saturday. We are participating in the outward triumph, the highest point of the Lord's ministry to the world, as far as the world could see. He is proclaimed as King and God as he enters into Jerusalem. On Saturday, he raises Lazarus from the dead. That spread like wildfire around the town of Jerusalem. and on the next day he's comes into the city, and he is lauded as king and God. So this is a great triumph for all of us. And when we are at those services, you can't help but feel it. We hold palms and pussy willows as the signs of victory. The hymns are very sort of upbeat, very positive. Everything is just wonderful. We know that what is coming. We realize that even as Christ is proclaimed as Savior, there are those who that was not the Savior they wanted, and well, this was part of God's plan for mankind. But this is just a lovely and wonderful feast, and something that people just shouldn't miss. So we begin on Friday. We have the sort of services of Lazarus Saturday, the only sort of Sunday that's not a Sunday, where we sing Having Beheld the Resurrection of Christ, and the services are very much like a Sunday service because Palm Sunday itself is very focused on the entrance of the Lord into Jerusalem. So a great triumph and really a wonderful feast. I'm with you, one of my favorites.
So how old are the services for Palm Sunday? When did that become a thing?
The divine service we use, or as far as the church's practice?
Well, both.
As far as we know, this is very ancient. The church has had this as part of its liturgical practice for a very long time, from apostolic times probably, because they participated in this and they relived it as part of the celebration each year. So it's, from that point of view, a very ancient sort of part of the service of the yearly cycle. The actual service itself, I'm not sure about that. I don't know that it's the most ancient. Some of these things get rewritten over time, and that's very entirely possible that that's happened over time. That has gotten some rewrites.
You said that Palm Sunday kind of spills over into Monday, and as I remember, that is one of the bridegroom services. It's what, kind of a matins? There's no liturgy, or there is?
There is, yes. This is interesting because in the Russian practice, pre-sanctified liturgies during Great Lent are generally on Wednesdays and Fridays. Occasionally, if there's a big feast on some other day of the week, like the 40 Martyrs or something like that, then there will be pre-sanctified. But generally, it's Wednesday and Friday. Whereas in Holy Week, the first 3 days of Holy Week have a pre-sanctified liturgy attached to them.
Anything different about the bridegroom pre-sanctified liturgies?
Well, yes. Yeah, what's
minor?
really significant is that, strictly speaking, the entire gospel is to be read during Holy Week before we get to the Lord's Passion.
Which one?
All four. It's really quite difficult in a parish to accomplish this, and this year, in discussing with the priests at the Lenten retreat with the clergy, Bishop Peter suggested to us that really probably the best way to do this is to read one of the Gospels each year and to spread it out over the course of Lent. And so this year we're reading the Gospel of Matthew over the course of
one of the longer
Great
ones.
Lent. It is. So we basically are reading 3 chapters every time we're having a pre-sanctified liturgy, one at the 3rd, one at the 6th, and one at the 9th hour.
It has to be a service that's going on when you read it?
Yes, it's part of the services. It's usually added to the Great Lenten hours that precede the pre-sanctified. But the pre-sanctified liturgies of that week do have specific Gospels attached to them as well.
You have another Gospel.
Yes,
reading.
so there's a lot of Gospel reading that takes place in that week, but practically speaking, that's not necessarily possible in a parish. And so rather than trying to tackle it all in that week, we spread out the reading of this year will be Matthew, next year we'll do Mark, and so on and so forth, so that each year we're at least reading one of the Gospels during Great Lent in preparation for the Holy Week.
Okay. A place like Cathedral in Chicago, Jordanville, you're going to...
In Chicago, they do read all of the entire Gospels, but they spread it out over Great Lent too. It's difficult mostly from a personnel point of view. It's hard to just read for hours and hours when you're going to be celebrating liturgy later that day and you've been fasting and so on and so forth. It's just difficult. It's not impossible. It's difficult. I remember when we did it in Jordanville, when I was assigned to serve one of those pre-sanctified liturgies, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
So, and if you would do it with one priest or two priests in that time, it could be difficult. So anyway, that's how Vladcast has to split it, to do it over 4 years, and I think that's worked out well for us. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback over the course of the Lent from people who have said how interesting it is to listen to the Gospels, chapter by chapter.
So it's all the way through. It's not sort of pericope to pericope, and
right. No, it's chapter to chapter. So what we basically have done this Great Lent is each of the Great Lenten hours we've read one chapter of Matthew at each one, and it's a little different in the church. We usually read pieces based on what's happening that day, or so on and so forth. So it's interesting, and people have come to me and said, I'm glad to be exposed to this and have this opportunity. So anyway, I'm glad we got to do it, and God willing, we'll get to keep getting to do that going forward.
Okay. If you're not too tired, maybe you could talk about what the bridegroom, where that comes from, and,
right.
and what we do.
Yes, behold, the bridegroom cometh at midnight. This is from the Gospels. And in fact, there is a particular hymn that is sung at the end of the canon each evening. Behold, the bridegroom cometh at midnight. And it's a very beautiful hymn. There are many, many different arrangements for this hymn.
Why does this Gospel reading come at the beginning of Holy Week? Who made the connection and why?
Well, that's a good question. That I don't know the answer to all of that multiple sort of compound question. The tradition of having these bridegroom matins is quite old, though, when we look at it liturgically. So it's been part of the church's practice for quite some time. And this is an important service of Holy Week, largely because this is the one that most people are exposed to. This is one that people can come to at the early part of the week, and it really prepares us for what is coming later. We're reading a lot of the Gospels during the time of these first days of Holy Week, and we have the bridegroom matins, which is a little easier for people to access, and would have been even in agricultural times, to come to the evening and come to the service. So it's an important sort of first step into the Holy Week. It even has its own special dismissal that is used during that time.
How does that go?
In Slavonic, it's "Gradi Gospod na volnju strast." Behold, the Lord goes to his voluntary passion, and then it goes on from there. So it's a very sort of established and good part of Holy Week. This year, actually, it's going to work out where we only get to do one of the bridegroom matins. We generally haven't done the Sunday one on Palm Sunday. People tend to be tired after the long weekend. Monday night will be vigil for Annunciation, and then we'll be able to do one Tuesday night. So that's the third of them. The third of the three is on Tuesday night, and that's the one that we'll be able to do.
So vigil for Annunciation on Monday night. That means Annunciation will be Tuesday?
That's right. Yes, okay. This year falls into Holy Week, which isn't all that uncommon, actually. But in any case, it falls into Holy Week, and which means that it's a strict enough time where, although on this day we would usually eat fish, this year we won't. That's right. So one fish day this year, and that's on Palm Sunday.
You said that there's Annunciation is Tuesday. That's a liturgy. And then there's another liturgy Tuesday night?
There will be bridegroom matins on Tuesday night, and the pre-sanctified will be on Wednesday morning.
Wednesday.
Actually, okay.
Yeah. Now, according to the Typicon, how are the three bridegroom days? Do they differ in any way? I mean, ours differ, of course, in the parish because of circumstances. But
right. Oh, yes, they are different. The canon is different for each of them. Similar content, but it is different. And also the gospel readings are different. No, they took the time to give us something unique for each one. But of course, the themes are very similar. So yes, it's a very, very rich liturgical time of year.
Wednesday evening, are we looking forward to anything special on the next day?
Yes, this Thursday is the institution of the Mystical Supper, when our Lord first gave communion to the apostles. And so we will have the preparatory services for that on Wednesday evening.
But that's the pre-sanctified liturgy and the preparatory?
No, we'll do the pre-sanctified liturgy Wednesday morning.
Oh,
Holy Week just gets so packed that it's very hard to sort of move things very much. They more or less have to stay where they would normally be, let's say. And although Wednesday evenings during Great Lent we do pre-sanctifieds, and it's beautiful and it's clearly an evening service and just so nice.
But not Passion.
It's just, there's no space for it. There's just no space for it. So, and then that Thursday, we serve quite a late liturgy, and it is one of those later liturgies.
2:00, right?
Yep, we start at 2. And, you know, at first it was just very few people, but every year there's been more and more people. I think we had 20-something people last year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot of fasting, to fast from midnight. And basically, people come, partake of Holy Communion at the Vesperal Liturgy, and then stay for the Matins of Holy Friday, which begin just a few hours, just an hour basically after liturgy ends. We get the church ready, and we begin the service of the 12 Gospels.
Do you let the parishioners eat after?
Oh, of course, sure, of course. Yeah, so...
you said one of the later. I thought it's the latest liturgy.
We were talking with Vladika about that a little bit, and he was telling us that really the latest is Holy Saturday. We don't do that here, and that's... I don't think that that's that uncommon in parish practice to not do that one all that late, because people have so much to do that day. You know, we have liturgy, and then everyone runs home and gets ready for Pascha and so on and so forth. But that one is to be started quite late, similar to the one on Holy Thursday. They're both quite late. So in any case, we're able to do the Holy Thursday one a bit later. And the Holy Saturday one, we don't do very late, just because people have so much to do.
So there's nothing going on Thursday morning until? That's
right, until the liturgy at 2:00.
Which will start up probably about 1 or 1:30, right? Or
No, it starts at 2 with the Vespers, and then we go right into the liturgy. So really, by the time it's done, it's close to 4:30, almost 5, and we start at 6 with the reading of the 12 Gospels. So it's a busy afternoon, evening. But the morning is a bit of time perhaps for rest.
Okay, so we had the institution of the Mystical Supper, and then a Vespers Thursday evening, and that looks ahead to what is Friday about.
Exactly, and so the Matins of Thursday evening is really the Matins of Holy Friday. And again, the way that Holy Week is laid out, a lot of the services happen a little bit before the time that they actually took place, just because there's no space to put them in. So Thursday evening is the Matins for Holy Friday and the reading of the 12 Passion Gospels. A longer service, not as long as people think, and you know, I have to say, has some of the most beautiful hymnography of the year. And it's such a significant service. This is the service at which we are mystically present at the cross, when our Lord is crucified and dies. And wow, so important. And you know, consistently, we don't get that many people. It's really too bad. I mean, it's not that the church is empty, no, not by any means. But for such a significant time, I hope that this year we'll have more, because the choir really puts in a lot of preparation for this day, because the hymnography is both beautiful and a little bit complex. And so, well, hopefully the Vladcast coming out several days before that will give people enough time to realize how important that is, and for them to be present.
And you get to hold a candle.
You do, and that's a really nice tradition, I think, that the church has.
Is that a Russian tradition, or that?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's in other Orthodox churches. There is this tradition that during the reading of the 12 Gospels, you hold a lit candle. Now, some people get a big candle and just hold it through the whole service. Other people try to time it, blow it out, light it, blow it out. For me, that's just much too complicated, but it's not that people shouldn't do that necessarily.
You get a candle too?
I get to hold the candle through the whole time, and that candle that is held and lit during the 12 Passion Gospels is brought home, and people will make the sign of the cross in the area between their sort of storm door and their main door of the house, with the soot from the candle while the candle is lit. So hopefully that night will not be too windy. It can be a bit of a
this
struggle.
Is the one where you want to take your candle home without blowing it out and carry.
If you can do so safely, you know, certainly our insurance company and their lawyers would want us to encourage people not to do anything at all that could be construed to be unsafe. However, what I've noticed, and I think is a nice practice, people have been bringing lanterns lately. The last 3, 4, 5 years, you can get these lanterns not very expensive in sort of like Bed Bath & Beyond and these kind of home decor places, you know, for $5 or something like that. And then you can put your candle in there, much safer than trying to, you know,
I've
drive
read
with a
about
lit
that,
candle.
In the old country, when everybody was agricultural, well, except for the 1%, but yeah, maybe it was Shmelyov talked about in his book about the year.
Right, and of course, when everyone they walked, and when everyone was using lanterns, that made sense. Well, you don't use lanterns all that often anymore, but these things can be picked up for not very much money, and it's a really nice practical way. Best probably to have a second person that you're going with, but in any case, that's a lot easier than trying to get a lit candle home. Without that. So, but that's a really nice practice. I really like that practice, and people will do that each year and keep those candles as a sort of a blessing, and maybe light them at significant times during the year when someone really needs prayers, so on and so forth. Yeah, so it's a really nice tradition.
Okay, so we've arrived at home, and we've made our cross, and now we can go to bed?
I think that that's a very good idea, because the next day is a very full day.
Okay.
It's a very full day. Holy Friday, there's a lot that happens, beginning with royal hours in the morning. That's
9 o'clock?
We start at 9 here, yes. This is the special royal hours, which are only done at a few of the services.
So why are they called royal?
The royal doors are open during these hours when normally they're closed.
So it doesn't have anything to do with the Tsar?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It really has to do with the fact that the royal doors are open because the gospel is brought forth into the middle of the church and read. These are...
So you never close the doors on the gospel?
That's right. Yes, yeah.
Like once it's out here, it has to sort of have that.
That's right, and then when we bring it back in, then we close the doors. So, and the theme of those gospels is the same as the theme the evening before of Christ's Passion, and so this is a really good service to attend if for some reason you can't do the night before. It's not that you should do one or the other. It's great to do both, but if you just for some reason can't come on Holy Thursday evening for the Matins and the 12 Gospels, come on Friday.
Any good singing Friday morning?
Friday morning continues the same hymnography from Thursday evening. Very beautiful, very nice. And Friday morning, of course, it tends to be a bit of a smaller choir, but it's also very nice. It's very intimate, I would say, a really nice service. And at the end of that service, then, we begin to set up for the Vesper service, which is the bringing out of Plashenica. So already...
Now, let's gloss that a little bit
yes.
for our non-Slavonic. Plashenica...
Winding sheet, I guess, or the icon of Christ in the tomb is probably the best way to explain it. This is the icon of Christ that lays on the tomb that we have in the church, in the middle of the church. And this is Christ laying in the grave.
And our version was used by the White Army? Is
yes, we have a really interesting one. We did have to have it restored a bit, but the iconography was just touched up. It wasn't changed. And this is the velvet that surrounds it is still from that time. It was given to us by a family in Windsor that were part of they're part of the White Army, and this was used by the White Russian Army in a sort of a mobile church, you know. And so we ended up with this, which what a great blessing for us. We probably won't be able to use it for too many more years. It's just really, it's getting old. We take very careful care of it, but the icon itself is in good shape, but the velvet that surrounds it and the hand-stitched lettering is struggling to...
Maybe some kind of restoration work on...
It may be. We have to look at that. We did the restoration of the icon, and now we have to look at the cloth. But in any case, so it's been used for a long time. Okay. And it's a really nice that it's a real blessing for us that we have this opportunity. So at the end of the royal hours, we set up everything. Basically, we're setting up not just for these next couple of days, but also for Pascha as well. Because when we finally move the tomb away and we put the Paschal icon in the middle, it's basically the same sort of setup and layout. So
set up in terms of
the flowers and this one and so forth. And so we'll do that after the royal hours, get everything ready in the middle of the church. The Plashenica is brought into the altar in preparation for the Vespers that will begin at 1 o'clock. And the sort of high point of the Vespers is the bringing of the Plashenica into the middle of the church
so it's
for
set
people to
up
venerate.
in the altar, but coming out is part of the mystical recreation.
Exactly. So this is a really, really nice service, very beautiful service. Middle of the day. Generally, this is a pretty strict fast day. I mean, not pretty strict. This is the strictest fast day of the year.
A lot of people don't eat.
A lot of people don't eat at all. And although we are not insisting on this, certainly we wouldn't eat before the end of Vespers. This would be the first that we would have anything, and generally we would eat a very, very simple, bread, little tea and water, something like that, very simple, just enough to keep us strong enough to come to the services. So, because, this is a very important day, the day that the Lord died for our salvation. So,
it wouldn't feel right having a big dinner.
I would
on the day that our Savior was.
I completely agree with you. This is one of those times when food is strictly a pragmatic thing. We need some to be able to get to church, and that's really about all. So that's the Vesper service, beautiful service. And then in the evening on that day, we have the Matin service for Holy Saturday. And we already begin to touch just a little bit the resurrection.
Now,
everything is still in black.
What does that look like, sound like, feel like?
So everything is still in black. And one very interesting part of this service that I would like people to know is that the canon that is sung at this service, the Matins for Holy Saturday, is the same canon that's used at the funeral of a priest.
Okay, which came first?
I believe it would be the service itself, and then it was brought into the priest's funeral.
Why do priests get that?
It's just a little different. The priest service is a bit longer than the service of a layman, and this particular canon is said, at least the Irmos. I have to check and see if the actual content, the content I think is different, but the Irmos anyway is sung. And so when we are hearing this is a very sort of powerful moment for all of the priests and the bishops to hear this, knowing very well that this will be sung for us.
Memento mori.
Right, exactly. So, but beautiful, beautiful service. Again, the choir works so hard to prepare for this. And at this particular service, this is the service of the Lamentations. You might remember that. There are these special lamentations that are sung of the Mother of God at the tomb of her son. Really beautiful. And then at the end of that, after the canon, we have a procession. This is the procession sort of Christ's descent into hell, to destroy hell and to free all those righteous who were there. But not only were they there, we forget this sometimes. St. John the Baptist had already been there. There's no reason to believe that he was keeping it a secret that the Messiah was in the world. I'm sure he was being quite vocal about that. He was.
Prophet.
It's almost certain that you can imagine all of these people waiting for so long, knowing that the Messiah is there.
They were ready for him.
Very, very ready. And so this is a really beautiful and powerful service. And at that time, after Christ's descent into hell, as we do the procession and we come back in, then we read the prophecy from Ezekiel about the dry bones. Really beautiful, powerful. This is sort of the first small step into the resurrection. But actually then the gospel that's read is quite resurrectional also. So it's not to say that it's Pascha, not at all.
Is it one of the, resurrectional for Saturday?
I believe it is one of the ones that we read on Saturday night also. I'll have to double check, but I'm almost positive that that's the case. Also the gospel that's read that next morning at the Vesperal Liturgy is also a resurrectional gospel.
Saturday morning.
Yes, Saturday morning. By that time, though, something has already happened, and that is we've already changed from black to white. And that happens at the service on Saturday morning, the Vesperal Liturgy of Holy Saturday. So really there is so much in Holy Week. And if you miss a little, you can miss a lot. That's not to say that everyone is going to be at every service. That's understood. In past years, we've posted an explanation of these services each day of the week on our website, and we plan to do that again this year as well. That way, if people can't be there, which is understandable, not everyone can really be at every service probably, they can at least read that and understand what's happening so that they're participating in some small way, and that they're able to, when they walk into the door, when they can get here, be right in the context, understand exactly where we are.
In the moment.
Right, exactly.
And we're practically at Pascha. We should probably say a few things about Pascha.
I think we should. I think we should.
You wear white.
Yes, white.
You walk around the church 3 times.
We do.
It's a late night.
Or an early morning.
Yeah.
Yes, we begin the service exactly at midnight. The church has always taught that Christ rose from the dead a moment past midnight because God did not want to deprive the world of himself for any longer than necessary.
Got to stick with the prophecies.
Absolutely.
But not a second more than
that's right.
Needed.
Exactly. And so, of course, it's a huge feast. It's a feast of feasts. There are many, many, many people. These services of Bright Week are all sung. The only thing that's read is the epistle or the gospel. That's all.
And I think the canon was composed by my heavenly protector, St. John of Damascus.
You are correct. And a beautiful canon it is. Many people even memorize this canon.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it is the replacement for our morning and evening prayers. No, not the canon, it's the hours of Pascha, I'm sorry. But many people memorize the canon just because we hear it very often during Bright Week, as often as we can, and it's a very, very beautiful and powerful way to praise the risen Lord.
Right, and then in Bright Week, the doors are open for the whole week.
Always open for the whole week, just as they are at an ordination, to show that God's grace is available to all. No one is kept from this.
How many liturgies for Bright Week?
We haven't done the schedule yet. But certainly there will be Pascha, Bright Monday, which is our children's liturgy. The children will sing everything. That probably will be 9 o'clock. We haven't set that yet. We haven't got to the schedule quite yet, but I believe it'll be 9 o'clock. And then for sure, Bright Saturday. I'm negotiating for one more, but that hasn't yet been settled. So
and
God
then at
willing.
what point did the doors close, at least for the time being?
That's a great question. That is a great question. There is actually at the verses of Lord I Have Cried for Thomas Sunday, so it's on Saturday night of Bright Week, there is a particular verse that is sung. The doors being shut is how it begins, and at that point the doors are shut. So a lot of people think it happens at the end of the 9th hour on Bright Saturday, and that's the end. Not, in fact, the case. It's not until midway through Lord I Have Cried on Saturday evening that the doors are closed. Yep. Yeah. That's right.
All right. Well, Father, we could talk about more. We could probably do another Vladcast, but that's probably enough for our poor viewers for this month. Do you agree?
I agree. I guess I would just say we can't cover it all. Come and see. Be part of the Holy Week and the Bright Week services in April. You won't be sorry for that.
And we're signing off for this Vladcast. Join us again on May 1st for our May Vladcast. I'm looking forward to it. Hope to see you.